popular antidiarrheal drug Imodium has been swept up in the opioid crisis under FDA rules. Boxes of Johnson & Johnson's popular antidiarrheal drug Imodium could soon contain far fewer caplets under a Food and Drug Administration request that seeks to limit access of drug abusers to pills that can produce an opioid-like high. The FDA has asked J&J to reduce the number of caplets in over-the-counter retail packages of Imodium to provide for short-term diarrhea treatment. A move would be followed by makers of generic versions of Imodium. FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb called the agency request fairly unprecedented in a statement on Tuesday and said those restrictions could constitute a 2-day supply, or a maximum of 8 2-milligram pills. J&J was non-committal. Gottlieb said there were growing concerns that abuse of Imodium-The, which contains a small amount of an opioid and similar medications readily available in supermarkets and drugstores, was adding to the death toll of the nation's opioid epidemic. The steps to limit Imodium are part of a broader FDA effort to stem the tide of overdose deaths. More than 42,000 Americans died from opioid overdoses in 2016, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The FDA is also considering whether it can use packaging to stem access to certain fast-acting opioids such as Vicodin and Percocet that are meant for short-term use, Mr. Gottlieb said. For example, doctors may opt to prescribe fewer pills if such opioids were packaged in 3- or 6-day blister packs, he said. Additionally, provided the FDA concluded that there was sufficient scientific support for these shorter durations of use, this could provide the basis for further regulatory action to drive more appropriate prescribing, Mr. Gottlieb said. The FDA warned in 2016 that people were using high doses of the active ingredient in Imodium, loperamide, to self-treat opioid withdrawal symptoms or to achieve a cheap, mild feeling of euphoria. Loperamide is sometimes referred to as the poor man's methadone. The key ingredient in anti-diarrhea medications like Imodium is part of the opioid family, an addictive drug class that includes morphine and oxycodone. People with addiction problems increasingly are turning to the drug, experts say, as prescription opioids become harder to obtain because of changes in legislation and regulation. The products are safe when used at the recommended maximum daily dose of 4 2-milligram tablets. But taking the drug in large quantities could lead to serious heart problems that could be fatal, according to the agency. But taking the drug in large quantities could lead to serious heart problems that could be fatal, according to the agency. We're evaluating the agency's request and share their goal to prevent misuse and abuse, Carol Goodrich, a spokeswoman for J&J, said in an email. On its website, J&J links to sellers who offered Imodium in packages of 24 to 48 caplets. Other stores, including Amazon.com and Walmart, had generic versions available online in bottles of as much as 200 pills. Mr. Gottlieb said packaging restrictions should make it easier to limit sales, and he plans to ask online retailers to address loperamide abuse. Walmart had generic versions available online in bottles of as much as 200 pills. Mr. Gottlieb said packaging restrictions should make it easier to limit sales, and he plans to ask online retailers to address loperamide abuse. If you're selling a drug with the potential for abuse and misuse through an online website, you're no longer in the business of selling widgets or books, Mr. Gottlieb said. You have a social contract to take voluntary steps to help address public health challenges. 10 deaths from loperamide use were reported to FDA from its approval in 1976 through December 14, 2015. The agency hasn't updated those numbers, but it says abuse of the drug is on the rise. 15 deaths were tied to the drug between 2010 and 2016, researchers reported in a study last year.